Thanks for clicking on this video. I really appreciate you being here. If you enjoy the story, consider subscribing and feel free to like the video or drop a comment below. It really helps the algorithm recommend these videos to you and to others who might enjoy them too. Either way, thanks for giving it a chance, and I hope it pulls you in. I have lived in Greystone my whole adult life, but I did not grow up here. My wife Laura did. She was born in this valley, surrounded by those dense pine forests that seem to swallow the sunlight even on the brightest days. When I married her and moved here 8 years ago, I thought I understood small towns. I thought I knew what it meant to live in a place where everyone knows your name and your business and probably what you had for breakfast. I was wrong about a lot of things back then. It started on a Tuesday evening in late September. I work as a line technician for the local power company, which means I spend most of my days climbing poles and splicing wires and generally making sure the lights stay on for the 1,200 or so people who call Greystone home. It is not glamorous work, but it is honest, and it keeps food on the table for me and Laura and our golden retriever Biscuit. The day had been unremarkable in every way. Clear skies, mild temperature, the kind of autumn day that makes you grateful to live somewhere beautiful. I had spent most of my shift replacing a transformer on the north side of town. The kind of routine maintenance that lets your mind wander while your hands do the work. I was finishing up around 7 in the evening, driving my work truck back through town along the main road, when the emergency broadcast system interrupted the radio. You know that sound, that harsh tone that makes your spine straighten whether you want it to or not. I figured it was a tornado warning, or maybe a flash flood advisory. We get those sometimes when the storms come down off the mountains. But the message was not about tornadoes or floods. A calm, automated voice filled the cab of my truck, speaking words that made no sense to me at all. It said there was a severe weather event approaching the Greystone Valley and that all residents should prepare immediately. Then it said something I will never forget as long as I live. Prepare for the reverse lightning. I actually laughed out loud. I thought it was some kind of glitch in the system, maybe a prank by some bored technician at the county emergency management office. Reverse lightning. What the hell was that supposed to mean? Lightning is lightning. It comes down from the sky. That is just how it works. That is physics. That is nature. You do not prepare for reverse lightning any more than you prepare for water to flow uphill or for the sun to rise in the west. I tried to call Laura at home but got no answer, which was unusual. She works from home doing medical billing, and she always picks up when I call. The phone just rang and rang until it went to voicemail. I told myself not to worry, that she was probably in the shower or had stepped outside to check on her garden. Laura loves that garden more than almost anything, and she would often lose track of time out there, pulling weeds and checking on her tomatoes. But something felt off. Something in the air itself felt wrong, like the pressure was changing in a way my body recognized even if my brain could not name it. My ears kept popping over and over, like I was driving up a steep mountain road even though the streets of Greystone are as flat as they come. I drove through the center of town, and that is when I started to really pay attention. People were acting strange. Old Mr. Henderson was standing in his front yard, just standing there, staring up at the sky with his mouth hanging open. He did not move, did not blink, just stood there like a statue with his head tilted back. The Pearson kids, who are usually out riding their bikes until dark, were nowhere to be seen. Their bikes lay abandoned in the driveway like they had dropped them and run. And Mrs. Tillman was boarding up her windows, but she was doing it from the inside. I could see her through the glass, nailing plywood over the windows from within her living room, working frantically like something was chasing her. When she saw me looking, she just shook her head and mouthed a single word: "Hurry." I pulled into the gas station where my friend Tom Reeves works. Tom and I go way back. We play poker together on Thursday nights, help each other out with projects around our houses, and share a few beers on warm summer evenings. He is a solid guy, not the type to get spooked easily. I have seen Tom stay calm during power outages that lasted for days, through ice storms that shut down the whole county, through everything this valley has thrown at us. But when I walked into that gas station, Tom looked like he had seen a ghost. His face was pale, almost grey, and his hands were shaking as he fumbled with the register. He was trying to close out the drawer, but his fingers kept missing the buttons. "Tom," I said, "what the hell is going on? What is this reverse lightning thing?" He looked at me with eyes that were too wide, too bright, with something that might have been fear, or might have been something older and deeper than fear. Something that looked almost like recognition. "You need to get home, Nathan," he said. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Get home, get in the basement, and whatever you do, do not look up during the storm." "What are you talking about?" I asked. "What storm?" "The sky is clear. It will not be for long," he said. He started pushing me toward the door. I remember this. I remember the last time it happened. I was just a kid, maybe 8 or 9 years old. My parents made us hide in the cellar all night. I could hear it outside, that sound, and I wanted so badly to look, but my dad held me down. He would not let me near the windows. "Tom, you are scaring me. Just tell me what is happening." But he would not say anything else. He practically shoved me out of the door, and I heard the lock click behind me. When I turned around, he was flipping the sign to closed and pulling down the blinds. Through the gap in the blinds, I could see him turning off all the lights, plunging the gas station into darkness, even though there was still daylight outside. I stood there in the parking lot for a long moment, trying to make sense of what was happening. The sky was still clear, a deep blue fading toward purple as the sun began to set behind the mountains. But there was something wrong with the way the air felt. It was too still, too heavy, and my ears kept popping like I was driving up a steep mountain road. A bird flew overhead, a crow by the looks of it, and I watched it suddenly veer sideways, flapping frantically like something invisible had pushed it off course. It let out a harsh caw and then flew away as fast as its wings could carry it, heading east, away from whatever was coming. I got back in my truck and drove home as fast as I safely could. Our house sits at the edge of town, right where the pavement ends and the forest begins. It is a nice little place, a 2-bedroom ranch with a big backyard that Laura has turned into the most beautiful garden in the county. Sunflowers in the summer, pumpkins in the fall, tomatoes and beans and squash that she cans every year and gives away to neighbors. When I pulled into the driveway, I could see her standing at the living room window, watching for me, Her face was pale behind the glass. I ran inside and found her in the living room with Biscuit. Our dog was acting strange, whining and hiding under the coffee table, his whole body trembling. Biscuit is usually the most laid-back dog you have ever met. He once slept through a thunderstorm that knocked out power to half the town. Nothing bothers him, but now he was pressed against the floor like he was trying to dig a hole and crawl into it. His eyes were wide and white-rimmed, and when I reached down to pet him, he flinched away from my hand. "Laura," I said, "what is happening?" Tom would not tell me anything, just kept saying to get home and get in the basement. She looked at me with an expression I had never seen on her face before. It was not quite fear. It was more like resignation, like she had been waiting for this moment for years, and now that it was here, she did not know whether to feel relieved or terrified. "It has happened before," she said. "When I was 6 years old, my grandmother called it the taking storm." "The taking storm? What does that mean?" Laura sat down on the couch and pulled Biscuit up onto her lap. The dog buried his face against her chest, still shaking. She stroked his fur absently, her eyes distant, looking at something I could not see. "I do not remember much," she said. "I was so young. But Grandma told us to hide in the cellar with the lights off and our eyes closed. She said we had to stay down there until it passed, no matter what we heard, no matter what we thought we saw. She said that if we looked, if we saw what was out there, we might not want to look away, and then we would be taken." She paused, and I could see drops forming in the corners of her eyes. "My brother Kevin did not listen," she continued. "He was 12, old enough to think he knew better than Grandma. He was always like that, always questioning, always wanting to understand how things worked. He went outside during the storm. He wanted to see what it was." I sat down next to her. Laura had told me about Kevin before, how he had died by suicide when she was 9 years old. She never talked about why, just that something had happened to him, and he was never the same afterward. I had always assumed it was depression, or maybe some kind of trauma that the family did not want to discuss. I never pushed her on it. "What did he see?" I asked. She shook her head, and a tear slipped down her cheek. "He would never tell us. He just said that the sky opened up and something looked back at him. He said it was beautiful and terrible, and that he could not stop thinking about it. Every day, every night, all he could think about was what he had seen. 3 years later, he walked into the forest and never came back. They found him a week later at the top of Miller's Ridge, the highest point in the valley. He had been looking up at the sky when he died." The emergency broadcast interrupted us again, coming from the television this time. The same calm voice, the same impossible words. Severe weather event approaching. All residents should shelter in place immediately. Prepare for the reverse lightning. Do not look at the sky. Repeat, do not look at the sky. "We need to get to the basement," Laura said. We gathered what we could: flashlights, water bottles, blankets, some food from the kitchen. Biscuit refused to walk, so I had to carry him down the stairs. He felt heavier than usual, like even his body was trying to sink into the earth, to get as far away from the sky as possible. There is a small window in our basement, one of those narrow rectangles set high in the wall that lets in just enough light to see by during the day. I watched the sky through that window as the last of the daylight faded, and what I saw made my stomach clench. The clouds were not rolling in like normal storm clouds. They were descending. It looked like a ceiling being lowered, pressing down on the world, getting closer and closer to the ground. The color was wrong too, a sickly yellowish gray that reminded me of old bruises, of rot, of things that had been dead too long. And there was something moving inside those clouds. Flashes of light, but not like any lightning I had ever seen. The flashes were moving downward in slow pulses, almost lazy, taking their time. And they were not the quick, bright strikes of normal lightning. They were prolonged, sustained, like something was reaching down from the sky and feeling around, searching for something. Then we heard the pounding on the front door. Laura grabbed my arm so hard her nails broke the skin. We both stared at the basement door, listening to those heavy, desperate knocks echoing through the house above us. Then a voice called out, thin and frightened. "Nathan, Laura, please, I need help." It was Mrs. Whitfield, our elderly neighbor from down the road. She has lived in Greystone her entire life, longer than anyone else in town. She must be 75 at least, maybe older, though she has never said. Her husband Earl has dementia and she takes care of him by herself, refusing to put him in a home despite how hard it has become. I have seen her walking him around the block on good days, holding his hand like he was a child, speaking softly to him when he got confused. "I will go get her," I said. Laura did not want to let go of my arm, but she did. I climbed the stairs and opened the front door. Mrs. Whitfield was standing on our porch, her white hair wild and her eyes red from crying. She was still in her house slippers, like she had run out without thinking. Her hands were shaking so badly that she could barely clasp them together. "It is Earl," she said. "He wandered off when he heard the warning. He went toward the woods. He does not understand what is happening. He thinks it is beautiful. He kept saying he wanted to see the lights." I looked at the sky. The clouds were so low now, I felt like I could reach up and touch them. That yellowish gray color had deepened, become almost green in places, like a bruise that was turning gangrenous. And those slow pulses of light were brighter now, closer. I could see them moving through the clouds like thoughts through a mind. "I will find him," I said. "You go inside with Laura. Get down to the basement." Mrs. Whitfield clutched my hands. Her skin was paper thin and cold. "Be careful," she said. "And Nathan, do not look up. No matter what, do not look up." I grabbed a flashlight and headed toward the tree line. The wind had stopped completely. The air was perfectly still in a way that felt deeply unnatural, like the world was holding its breath. Like everything, the trees, the grass, the earth itself was waiting for something terrible to begin. Even the insects had gone silent. No crickets, no night birds, nothing. Just that heavy, pressing silence and the distant rumble of something that was not quite thunder. I found Earl about 50 yards into the woods, standing in a small clearing and staring up at the sky. His face had that blank look I had seen before, the look he gets when the dementia takes him somewhere else, somewhere inside his own head, where the rest of us cannot follow. But there was something different about his expression now. He was smiling, not his usual confused smile, but something peaceful, almost rapturous. His eyes were wide and unblinking, reflecting the strange light that pulsed above us. "Earl!" I called out. "We need to get back to the house. There's a storm coming." He did not respond, did not even seem to hear me. I walked up to him and grabbed his arm, trying to turn him away from the sky. That is when he spoke, and his voice was clear and lucid in a way it had not been for years. It was like the dementia had lifted, like whatever was in the sky had burned through the fog in his mind. "They are opening the sky," he said. "It is so beautiful when it goes up instead of down." I did not understand what he meant. I did not want to understand. "Come on, Earl, let us go." I started dragging him back toward the house, and that is when the first rumble of thunder shook the ground. But it did not come from the sky. It came from everywhere at once, above and below, like the earth itself was groaning, like something massive was waking up. And then the rain started, but the rain was falling upward. I stopped in my tracks, unable to believe what I was seeing. Droplets of water were beading up from the grass, from the dirt, from the leaves on the ground, and rising into the sky. It was not a lot at first, just thin streams of moisture lifting off the earth like reverse ribs. But it was unmistakably happening. The water was rising, defying everything I knew about the world. Earl laughed, a sound of pure, childlike delight. "See?" he said. "See? It is drinking. The sky is drinking the world." I ran. I dragged Earl behind me, and I ran toward the house, not caring if I hurt him, not caring about anything except getting inside. Laura was screaming from the doorway, her voice cutting through that awful rumbling silence. "Nathan, get inside now." We were almost to the door when the first bolt hit. I do not know how else to describe it. A column of brilliant white light shot up from somewhere in the forest behind us, a massive pillar of energy that punched through the clouds and kept going, rising and rising until it disappeared into whatever was waiting above. The sound it made was indescribable, a sucking, roaring noise that pulled at my ears and my chest, and something deeper, something in the core of me that wanted to follow it up into the sky. I shoved Earl through the door and slammed it behind us. We huddled in the basement for what felt like hours, but might have been minutes. Time had become slippery, hard to hold on to. I had nailed blankets over the small window, but light kept seeping through, light that pulsed upward and cast shadows that fell the wrong direction. Our shadows stretched toward the ceiling instead of the floor, reaching up like they wanted to escape our bodies. The sound outside was constant, that sucking, roaring thunder that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. And there were other sounds too, creaking, groaning sounds, like trees being bent backward, rushing sounds, like water flowing uphill. And underneath it all, a low vibration that I could feel in my teeth, in my bones, in the deepest part of my chest. Earl kept trying to look at the windows. His wife had to physically restrain him, her thin arms wrapped around his chest as he strained toward the light. "I want to see," he kept saying. "I want to see what is up there. It is calling me. Can you not hear it calling?" I noticed something terrible then. The light from the window, even filtered through the blanket, was mesmerizing. I could not stop glancing at it, and every time I did, I felt a pull, a yearning, like something was calling to me, like there was something beautiful just on the other side of that blanket, something I needed to see. I found myself standing up. I found myself walking toward the window. Laura grabbed my arm and yanked me back so hard I stumbled and nearly fell. Her face was inches from mine, her eyes wild with fear and determination. "This is how it works," she said. "This is how it gets people. It makes you want to see it. It makes you think it will be beautiful, that you will understand everything if you just look. But if you look, it takes something from you, something you can never get back." Mrs. Whitfield spoke then, her voice thin and tired. She had managed to get Earl to sit still, though his eyes kept drifting toward the covered window like a compass pointing north. "It has come to Greystone 3 times in my lifetime," she said. 1954, 1978. "And now, what is it?" I asked. She shook her head. "I do not know what it really is. I only know what it does. Each time it comes, some people look at it, and those people are taken." "Taken? You mean killed?" "No, not killed. Something worse. Something essential is taken from them." My own mother looked at it in 54. She spent the rest of her life insisting that she had been emptied out. She said something else was wearing her skin now, that the real her was up there somewhere, in the sky, and this body was just a shell that kept walking around because it did not know how to stop. She could never explain what she saw, only that it was going home and that it wanted to bring everything with it. I opened my mouth to ask another question, but before I could speak, Earl moved. He was faster than I would have thought possible for a man his age, faster than the dementia should have allowed. He broke free from Mrs. Whitfield's grip and lunged across the basement, tearing the blanket off the window before any of us could stop him. For one split second, I saw what was outside. The world was inverted in the most horrifying way imaginable. The lightning was striking upward, massive bolts of energy shooting from the ground into that churning greenish sky. But it was not just energy being pulled up. There were shapes in the light, trees, dirt, pieces of buildings, all being drawn upward in spiraling columns, spinning and rising like they weighed nothing at all. And there were other shapes too, shapes that looked like people, stretched and distorted, their bodies elongating as they rose, their mouths open in silent screams, or maybe in ecstasy. I could not tell which. They were rising towards something I could not quite see, something vast and dark that waited above the clouds. Then Earl stepped into the light from the window and his body went rigid. His eyes rolled back until only the whites showed. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. And his skin started to ripple, like something underneath was trying to get out, trying to rise up through him and escape into the sky. I tackled him, knocking him away from the window while Laura covered it back up with the blanket. We lay there on the cold basement floor, Earl and I, his body convulsing beneath me. And then he went still. He was breathing, but his eyes stayed white. A thin trickle of something dark ran from his nose. Not blood, something thicker, something that seemed to be evaporating into the air even as it emerged, rising in tiny wisps toward the ceiling. Mrs. Whitfield was sobbing. "I knew," she said. "I knew this would happen." Earl was always too curious, always looking up at the sky and wondering. He used to sit on the porch for hours, just watching the clouds go by. I think part of him has always wanted to go up there and see what was past the blue. The storm continued for what felt like forever. We sat in the darkness of that basement, listening to the sounds of the world being pulled apart above us. The roaring, the rushing, the occasional crash of something large being torn from the earth. And through it all, Earl lay on the floor, with his white eyes staring at nothing, that dark substance slowly trickling from his nose and mouth and evaporating before it could hit the ground. At some point, I asked Laura what the old stories said about where things go when the reverse lightning takes them. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Grandma believed it was something hungry, something that lives in the sky above this valley, something that was here long before people came. She said it opens its mouth every few decades and drinks the world upward." "That is insane," I said. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew they were hollow. After what I had seen, insane did not mean anything anymore. Laura continued, "The old stories say the founders of Greystone knew about it. They built the town in this valley on purpose, because the reverse lightning always comes here. They thought they could learn to live alongside it. They thought if they followed the rules, if they stayed inside and kept their eyes closed, they would be safe. They made a deal with whatever is up there. They would give it what it wanted, a little bit at a time, and in return, it would leave the rest of them alone." Then we heard footsteps above us. Slow, deliberate footsteps moving through the house. We had locked all the doors. I knew we had. I had checked them myself before we went down to the basement. The footsteps moved from room to room, pausing occasionally like whoever was up there was searching for something. The floorboards creaked in a pattern that was almost rhythmic, almost like breathing. Then they stopped, right above the basement door. Then we heard breathing, wet, rattling breathing, coming from the other side of that door. It sounded like lungs that had been filled with water, like something that should not be alive anymore but was anyway. A voice called down, and my blood went cold because it sounded exactly like Earl. But Earl was lying on the floor 3 feet away from me, unconscious, his white eyes still staring at nothing. "I can see so much better now," the voice said. "Why will you not come up and look with me?" Laura covered her mouth to keep from screaming. Mrs. Whitfield made a sound like a wounded animal. "It is so beautiful up there," the voice continued, "so empty and so full at the same time. I understand now. I understand everything. The sky is not really a sky. It is an ocean. And we are all at the bottom, looking up at the surface. And something up there is looking back, down at us." I grabbed a hammer from my toolbox, the only thing I could find that might serve as a weapon. Not that I had any idea what I would do with it. The thing outside the door began scratching at the wood. The sound was like fingernails, but wetter, like something that used to be fingers, but was not anymore. And then Earl sat up. His eyes were still white, still vacant. His body moved in jerks and twitches, like a puppet being controlled by someone who did not quite understand how human joints worked. But he stood up and started walking toward the door. I moved to stop him, but Laura grabbed my arm. "Do not touch him," she whispered. "Whatever is left of Earl is connected to what is outside now. If you touch him, it might take you too." Earl reached the door. His hand closed around the handle. "Let me show you what I saw," he said. But his voice was not his voice anymore. It was the same voice we had heard from the other side of the door. They were speaking in unison, two mouths forming the same words at the same time. He opened the door. Something was standing there. I cannot fully describe what I saw, because my brain refused to process it. It looked like a person, but wrong, inside out, stretched too tall, its limbs too long, its head tilted at an angle that no human neck should allow. It looked like something that used to be human, but had been pulled apart and put back together by hands that did not understand anatomy, that did not know what a person was supposed to look like. The thing embraced Earl, and they both dissolved. It happened in an instant. One moment they were there, solid and real, and the next they were light, pure, brilliant light, rising up through the ceiling, through the house, through the clouds, going somewhere I could not see and did not want to imagine. Mrs. Whitfield screamed Earl's name, but he was gone. There was nothing left of him, not even a shadow. Eventually, the sounds stopped. The light faded. A heavy silence settled over everything, so complete it was almost a sound itself. I do not know how long we waited before I finally worked up the courage to go upstairs. It might have been minutes or hours. Time had stopped meaning anything. When I cracked open the front door, dawn was breaking. The sky was clear and blue, perfectly normal, like nothing had happened at all. But the world outside was not normal. There were patches of ground where the grass was simply gone. Not burned, not torn up, just absent. Bare earth where lawns used to be, as if the soil itself had been pulled away. Trees had gaps in them, branches missing, not broken, but simply not there anymore. Some of the trees looked like someone had taken a hole punch to them, leaving perfect circular voids in their trunks. And the houses, several houses down the street had holes in their roofs. Perfect circular holes, punched upward from inside, the edges smooth and clean. I drove Laura into town. The damage was random, scattered. Some buildings were destroyed, others completely untouched. The survivors were emerging, pale and shaken, but no one was talking. They just started cleaning up, like this was something they had done before, like it was just another chore. I found Tom at the gas station. All the windows were gone, but Tom was sweeping up the glass like it was just another mess to deal with. "How bad?" I asked. 6 people missing," he said. "Just gone. Mayor Thompson, the Williams family from Pine Street, both parents and their little girl, and old Earl Whitfield." I felt sick. I had watched Earl disappear. I had watched that thing embrace him and pull him up into the sky. "This is normal," Tom continued. His voice was flat, empty. "People will grieve quietly and life will continue, and no one will speak of it. Not until the next time." "When is the next time?" Tom just shrugged. "Could be 20 years, could be 50. It comes when it comes. All we can do is follow the rules and hope we are not the ones it takes." I went to check on Mrs. Whitfield. She was sitting on her porch, staring at nothing, her hands folded in her lap, like she was waiting for something that would never arrive. "I tried to save him," I said. "I am so sorry." She looked up at me with eyes that had seen too much. Earl was always going to be taken, she said. Some people are just drawn to it. They spend their whole lives looking up, wondering what is past the sky. And eventually, the sky answers. I asked her what it is. What actually causes the reverse lightning? She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "The oldest stories say something lives in the sky above this valley. Something that was here long before people came. It is not evil, not really. It is just hungry. And every few decades, it opens up and drinks the world upward." "That does not make any sense," I said. Mrs. Whitfield smiled, a sad and tired smile. "Some of the old-timers believe we live at the bottom of an ocean of air," she said. "And the reverse lightning is what happens when something above us gets thirsty. It reaches down and takes what it needs. And some of us want to go. Some of us have always belonged up there, not down here." Life returned to something like normal over the next week. The missing people were never found, and the outside world never heard about what happened. Cell service and internet had been out during the storm, and when they came back, no outside news crews seemed interested in a small town losing power. The damage was written off as a freak electrical storm. Insurance adjusters came and went. Contractors started repairs. But I could not stop thinking about what I had seen. Those shapes rising into the sky, those human figures, stretched and distorted, being pulled up into something vast and dark. I started having nightmares. In the dreams, I am being pulled upward. My body stretches and thins, becoming light, becoming nothing. And above me, waiting for me, there is something enormous, something with a mouth the size of the horizon. It is not angry. It is not evil. It just wants me to come home. Laura finally told me the full truth about her brother Kevin. We were sitting on the back porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of orange and pink. It was beautiful, but I could not stop looking at the sky differently now. I could not stop wondering what was up there, past the blue, past the clouds, past everything we think we know. Kevin told me what he saw, Laura said. The night of the storm, when he was 12. He looked up, even though Grandma told him not to, and he saw something. What did he see? Laura took a long breath. He said the sky opened up, and there was an eye so large it filled the entire horizon, and it was looking down at all of us. I felt cold despite the warm evening air. Kevin said it was not angry, Laura continued. It was not even hungry exactly. It was more like longing, like it missed us, like it wanted us back. Wanted us back from where? Kevin became convinced that people do not belong on the ground, that we used to be up there with whatever that thing is, and we fell down long ago. He said the reverse lightning is its way of trying to bring us home, its way of correcting a mistake that was made a very long time ago. She was crying now, water running silently down her cheeks. He started to want to go back, she said. He could not make the wanting stop. Every time he looked at the sky, he felt it pulling at him, and eventually he could not resist anymore. He walked up to the highest point in the valley, and he let it take him. I put my arm around her and held her while she cried. But even as I comforted her, I felt something cold and terrible settling in my chest because I understood what she was describing. I understood it too well. The next day, I went to the edge of the woods where I had found Earl. I stood in that small clearing and looked up at the perfectly blue sky. It was a beautiful day, cloudless, peaceful, and for just a moment, I thought I saw something shift up there, something vast, moving behind the blue like a shape behind a curtain, like an eye slowly opening. I felt a tug in my chest, a pulling sensation that rose up through my throat and made me want to cry out. But it was not pain. It was longing. It was the feeling of being homesick for a place I had never been. I wanted to see it again. I wanted to look at the reverse lightning and understand what it really was. Laura found me standing there, staring at the sky. She took my hand and led me away from the trees, back toward the house, back toward the life we had built together. But as we walked, I noticed something that made my heart skip a beat. My shadow was falling the wrong way. It was stretching toward the sky instead of along the ground, reaching up like a hand grasping for something just out of reach. I did not mention it to Laura. I understand now why people stay in Greystone despite everything. The reverse lightning leaves a mark on you. It makes you part of whatever it is. And once you have seen it, once you have felt that pull, you can never fully leave. You can only wait. I still look up at the sky sometimes when Laura is not watching. The blue seems thinner now, more fragile, like a membrane stretched over something vast and patient, like the surface of an ocean seen from far below, something that is looking back at me, something that knows eventually I will look again when the storm comes back, and this time I might not look away.